Hello and welcome.
Today we have a couple of interesting stories, including one about how a woman is planning on getting sweet revenge on her brother who sexually assaulted her as a kid.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy with a cup of your favorite drink. First story. My fiancé doesn't understand why I can't get over his STI fast enough. He's 35 and I, female, am 30 years old. He has HIV and his viral load is undetectable. He didn't tell me until months into our relationship. We dated years back and this is our second time dating. In the beginning of our relationship, we talked about getting tested for STDs. Conversation was as follows. Me. Hey, I was just tested for STDs a couple weeks before we met again. Here are my results. Can you please get tested and show me your results? Him. Yeah, I was tested months ago and they didn't call me. They said they will only call if something is wrong. Me. Okay, great. Can you get tested and show me the results? Him. Yeah, sure. 2 weeks later he took me to a park and asked me if I would ever date someone with HIV or cancer. I said not HIV. He said okay. Then further along the walk he randomly tells me he doesn't think we can be together because his life is too complicated. I was shocked and heartbroken. Later in the day he said, "You told me we can't be together and that's why I said that." I was so confused. What? When did I say that? I never said that. I'm so happy to be with you. He responded, "Please just leave my apartment after I tell you." Okay. It goes on in circles and I thought it was ridiculous to ask in the moment. But I asked, "Do you have an STD or something?" And he threw a pill organizer on the table and said, "The worst one." In the moment I was devastated, not for my exposure, but for him. I ran over to him and hugged him so tightly. He lied to me. We even had moments of unprotected sex sometimes. He told me that his doctor told him U=U and he didn't even have to disclose his status since he can't pass the virus along sexually since he's undetectable. I think that's inappropriate advice from a doctor. He said he knew he wasn't putting me in danger and he doesn't even remember he has it sometimes and take the pills like a robot.
I've been tested and remain negative after over a year. Sometimes I randomly ask him a question about it.
Maybe 3 times this year. He got really upset and asked why do I constantly bring it up. He said it reminds him and makes him feel dangerous. I apologized and told him it's going to take a little more time for me to really get over it. Especially since he lied about it and that breach of trust was almost too much. He thinks he did nothing wrong by keeping it from me and I don't know how to explain to him that it was not okay without making him feel dangerous. I've said, "I love you. I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to be. You are not dangerous. I'm so lucky to have found you again. I felt betrayed by you not being open with me and it's like salt in the wound when you minimize my feelings about when I found out. You've never acknowledged my feelings.
I am hit with defensiveness and no compassion.
You compare me to your exes by saying how easily they accepted you regardless of it and never brought it up. I understand it is a struggle that I don't understand. I just want acknowledgement for the breach of trust so we can finally heal. He makes me feel like I did something wrong to him.
Getting over it and moving on is not easy because it's the betrayal that I'm struggling with.
He's exceptionally selfish at times, in general, and the selfish moments is what brings me back to the betrayal. I accompanied him to work one day. It was a long drive to another state. I waited for him in his car for 5+ hours while he worked. He returned to his car with another car and said, "Aren't you excited about my new car?"
Long story short, he wasn't actually working the whole time and went to buy a new car.
He asked me to drive his car back to our home state, 5 hours away, while he drove the other car. I was already waiting for him for nearly 6 hours in his car. I was so upset and he said he can't believe I wasn't supportive. Later that week, I asked something about the STI. I've only asked when my trust is triggered. The plan is therapy. The top replies, "Yes, you should get therapy to find out why you are putting up with someone who has no empathy and compassion. Has lied about something you call a deal breaker but then wasn't, so you rolled back your boundaries to allow for his lies. Who continues to treat you like a spare part in his life and less than you deserve. You cannot change him, you cannot make him change in therapy or realize anything he doesn't want to accept and change. People don't work that way, and neither does therapy wave a magic wand and change people into realizing they are asshats who need to change. There is no such thing as a kick in the ass that changes anyone. Change happens because people want to put in the work for themselves, not for others. Like you said, he doesn't believe he did anything wrong. Truly, he doesn't see things from your point of view. He lied about something truly awful, and yet you stayed and put up with his awful behavior. Please do get therapy to find out why you are letting this person treat you like this, and that you go back for more of the same. I am sorry this is harsh, but really he does awful things to you, and you are just thinking that if another person just tells him he has been awful and needs to change, that it will happen. Life isn't like that in the real world. The second reply: he lacks empathy. You keep hoping he'll develop empathy. Then when he shows he lacks it, like with the car example, you get triggered and talk about the HIV thing. Which isn't really the issue. That's just another example of him lacking empathy. He's a walking red flag. Continue to ignore those red flags at your own risk. The third reply: I might be the only one here, but I'm a little torn on the HIV thing. If someone is in fact undetectable and takes their medication religiously, they aren't dangerous at all, but still experience a lot of discrimination, even by professionals who should know better. I imagine it would be near impossible to build a relationship with someone if you always disclose it up front / in the early stages, and again, nobody's put in any danger in that scenario. I absolutely get that this feels like a massive breach of trust, but I also think it's a difficult position for him. That being said, what bothers me most about him is that he seems to lie and manipulate at his own convenience, so there is no way to be sure that he is in fact undetectable and careful about taking his medication regularly. He expects you to understand, but won't even listen to your perspective. At this point, I'd question his entire character: HIV infection or no HIV infection. The second story: my girlfriend, 29F, would love an open relationship if I said yes. We have been together for 3 years now, and we have discussed taking the next steps, but recently something happened which has made me very uneasy. So we are both big fans of White Lotus series, and while watching it we were discussing whether Cameron and Daphne have an open relationship or do they just cheat on each other while pretending to not notice what the other is doing. And it was during this discussion that she said it would be so much fun for them if they just agree to an open relationship. So I asked if she would like it, and she said sure. If I agreed, then she would have no objections to it and it will be fun. Now I know people have open relationships and are happy in it, but I am not one of them. I am a simple guy who wants a monogamous relationship. And this disclosure from her has now me doubting our future. I don't want to get married and have kids only to have this bomb dropped on me that my wife wants an open relationship. I just don't know what to do here, guys. I really like her and we are compatible in most regards, but this conversation has thrown a wrench in our situation. I could really use some advice here, Reddit. I didn't expect my year to end like this in turmoil. The top replies: just to comment on the show, it's blindly obvious that they just cheat on each other and pretend not to notice or just don't tell. Cam says as much. They're definitely not open in any way. On your personal situation though, it's a tricky one. I don't necessarily think expressing that you would be open to having an open relationship is a killer the first time. But if you make it clear that you're monogamous and that's all you will ever be, and they give you any pushback on it whatsoever, then yeah, I think your relationship is done. I don't think for me, as someone who is wholly monogamous, there would be any coming back from that. I would have an honest chat with your GF and express that you will only ever be monogamous and see what her reaction is. For me, if her response is anything other than, that's all good by me, then I would move on, as I just don't think you're compatible. The second reply: idolizing their relationship is a massive red flag on their own. Hello, did you not watch the last episode? When she found out he potentially had sex with Harper, she was trying so hard to not cry. Who sees that and is like, yeah, I want to be emotionally devastated but cover it up so I can be with a man who hates our kids. Goals. So fun. It's obvious she doesn't want to be in an open relationship and only does it to get revenge. Open or polyamorous relationships don't work unless both people are 3000% sure that's what they want and y'all have very open and honest communication about feelings and boundaries. Never say yes unless you already had the idea that it would be fun before it came up and are super sure about it. Third story. Am I the idiot for uninviting a friend to my wedding so my boyfriend doesn't have to take care of him? Context. My boyfriend Freddie, 30M, and Callum, 29M, have been best friends since college. They were roommates and graduated together, and all that stuff. Me, 30F, and Freddie have been dating for 6 years and we are getting married next January. We're incredibly happy and we can't wait to have our fabulous wedding. We both deal with anxiety because we have very high profile, demanding jobs. So we agreed to have a small wedding, simple, relaxed and stress-free. I've shared spaces with Callum at my boyfriend's family events, parties, and he hangs out with my boyfriend a fair amount of time. He's great. I like him. Here's the issue though. Callum does this thing where he sits or stands very still and stares into space for a long time. Freddie told me it's a thing called catatonia. I call that just zooming out, or dissociating as Gen Z said, 3 different words. I was wrong. The problem is that my boyfriend usually babysits him when that happens. I mean, he stays right next to him the whole time. I thought it was like a cute, nice gesture, but on the day of our wedding, I mean, really? That sounds like the opposite of our dream day. He's even taller than my boyfriend. So just imagine a 6'4" guy just standing in the middle of our reception, next to the groom. Elmo, here's the conflict. I talked this privately with Callum, just me and him, and he agreed that he would be a distraction. He declined the invitation. I asked him to not tell anything to my boyfriend and he said he would be too embarrassed to say anything. I said, please don't feel embarrassed. I know it's not your fault, and we left it at that very friendly and politely. I told him he is more than welcome to join us for our Christmas dinner, 'cause I know he's not close with his family, and like I said, I like him. I told my boyfriend that Callum declined and he was disappointed, but he agreed that less guests fitted with our idea of a small low-key relaxed wedding, so it was still perfect. The next day I told my mom, my sister and my maid of honor, and they were visibly upset with me. My mom said it was an assholey move and that it was ableist. But I don't think that's true because it is not really a disability, it is. I think it is more about his personality and his thing that I know is going to take a toll on my boyfriend that day. I want to make sure I was not a horrible person to pacify my conscience.
Am I the idiot?
The top replies. You are the idiot. Firstly, Callum absolutely has a disability, so stop pretending you are not purposely excluding a disabled person from your wedding because their disability makes you uncomfortable. Secondly, telling someone who is a friend that their disability, which I am sure they are very aware of and have to live with, is an embarrassment and you don't want them at your event is such an unbelievably horrible thing to do. Thirdly, you then lied to your boyfriend that his friend had chosen not to attend his wedding, almost certainly making your boyfriend question this friendship. This is so manipulative. I can't get my head around how you thought it was an okay thing to do to someone you apparently love. Honestly, there is so much premeditated arsehole here, it's mind-blowing. The second reply, verifying one of his worst fears, likely that his disability is too much a burden for events. Original poster, you are the idiot, full stop. The third reply, this carrot, one of his worst fears, recognized for sure. It's really sad the monster this girl is for tossing it out as a trait rather than a medical problem. I actually have a disability that makes events and outings very hard for me sometimes, and I become obsessive about being a burden or ruining the mood when it acts up. Being told to stay away from my best friend's wedding for something out of my control would break my heart. Out of love and compassion, we had an agreement that I wouldn't be in her wedding, but we did it 10 years before she got married. I even made it to 20 minutes into the reception and then left BC. I started to feel like I would take away from her having a good wedding night. If she would have told me not to come, I'm not sure I'd ever stop feeling like a burden another day in my life, tbh. Poor Callum, everyone is the a-hole. You are the idiot in a very bigly way. Edit. I thought this subreddit was, am I the idiot, not, please send me threats and wish the worst for me and my soon-to-be husband. Edited to correct what I said about his disability. That was ableist. Edit 2. Too much, well deserved. Hate today, so I'll stop with the edits and replies. Just gonna say Fred is a loving person and I should be more like him. I owe Callum a huge apology, and my Fred deserves one too, not just for my lie but also BC I know he loves Cal. Should have known better. Fourth story. My brother said me when I was a child, and now that he is getting married I want to ruin the wedding and expose him. I, 23F, was sexually assaulted by my stepbrother when I was a child. I don't remember the exact age because it was never brought up by my parents. I assume I was 4 to 5 years old and he was in his late teenage years. I remember very clearly the details of it, and I remember being hit by my parents when they knew. I'm very upset and mad about it because it affected my sexuality now that I'm grown. His wedding is in 2 months. I don't hate him personally, but I hate the fact that he is living his best life with his fiancée and I'm still suffering from the consequences of his actions and my parents' neglect. This is an intrusive thought, but I might expose him for that on the wedding day. Edit. As I remember, it was only once or twice. I had a very traumatic childhood and I have forgotten a lot of things. Sorry for the lack of details. The top replies. You're going to get a lot of encouragement here egging you on because they don't have to live with the consequences of your actions, you do. They're just hoping for a good beau RU in the future. I will admit, it would be a good one. If you do it this way, you will probably completely change the dynamics in your family forever. You may end up being no contact with some or all of your family. Think about what you want the outcome to be. Your brother needs to be held accountable for his actions. You also are morally obligated to let his fiancée know that he has sexually assaulted a child since she might have kids with him. Doing it while ruining her dream day when she has done nothing wrong is probably not the best way to do that. Might be better to invite the fiancé out for lunch and a conversation.